Again, welcome to ITSE2309. This is Chapter 13, Business Intelligence. Many people think that that's an oxymoron, but that's another issue. What we're going to talk about is how businesses collect information. Now, let's say this is just a standard business operation. Okay, there are two types of data collection mechanisms in business intelligence. So in 1 month, you got 30 days of business. So every day you're tracking all the events. So you're tracking all the transactions. Okay? Now, at the end of the month, you have some kind of summary level. And you're going to do an analysis on this level. So there's two items we're looking for. There's the online transaction processing and online analytical processing. So these are the two events. So you have collecting data every month and then doing the analysis that you do every month. So those are the two things that we're going to look at. Now, what we're looking here also is as you're doing this analysis, you use the information to do predictive work. So if you sold 30 units of something this month, the analysis is you go think of selling 30 units next month. But that's not always true because there's a lot of seasonal adjustment. I mean, you're not going to sell snow blowers in July, because you could, but usually you sell those October, November when you need them. So there's a lot of seasonal adjustment. So even though you have the summary analysis, there's still some intelligence that has to be placed on this information. And that's where the human element is involved. But the human element also is kind of interesting in that there are some scenarios where you don't want the human element involved, and there are some scenarios where you do want the human element involved in the analysis. For example, a hospital. You have an accident and you have two people come in. You have a 60-year-old and you have a 6-year-old. But you have limited resources at the hospital. So what would you do? Which patient would you take, the 60-year-old or the 6-year-old? Well, humanity as it is would default to the 6-year-old because the 60, the 6. Now, that's the human element. Now, in the business intelligence side, where you're going to try to do analysis on cost recovery, well, the system would say, you know, if I spend X amount of dollars on the 60-year-old, I'll be able to get my money back because he'll be productive right away. On the 6-year-old, if I invest money in the 6-year-old, it may take 20 years to get the money back. So if I got to figure out where I'm going to spend my money and get it back quicker, I'm going to do the 60, not the 6. So in some scenarios, you want the human element involved. In some scenarios, you don't want the human element involved. So you got to be careful with that. The other thing is that on the analysis in the predictive world, so let's say you develop a minimum order of 50. So you consume 10 units a week. And it takes 3 weeks to get an order. So if you consume 10 units a week and it takes 3 weeks to get an order, what is the minimum level you would expect? 30? 40? 50? So part of the analysis is to develop a process to help you establish minimum levels that will help you make decisions. Now all this is designed to make better business decisions. So you're developing a decision support structure. You want to be sure that you're ordering the right time and the right thing. So the elements that we're looking on are the decision support structure, this mechanism that helps you make good decisions. Also understand that you're collecting information in a transactional approach where you keep track of everything and then you do a summary level event. And hopefully that you develop a history. The history will help you predict. Now that's kind of interesting because in the business intelligence world, most businesses have the October 1 year to September 30 year. Okay, that's the business year. So usually somewhere around January is where you begin to create the business for the following year. So somewhere around June or July, you complete the package and that's when it gets hammered out. that's where you negotiate everybody. So usually what you want to do is, since the business year begins October 1, you want to have everything in place somewhere around September 15th. Because you have to implement it, and everything has to be initialized so you can run it for the first pay period come October 1. So usually somewhere around the middle of September everything's done. So you work from January to July, 7 months, and then it takes another 2 months, so you have 9 months of work by the time you get to August and September. And then it's going to be implemented. Now, so the scenario I'm trying to get to is when I was doing this kind of work, I did an analysis, and history said that we had a 7% delta change. So when we prepared the budget, we said, well, we're going to do 7 years. That means we may have to hire people, do resources, get all kinds of goodies. So we did this presentation, everything's happy, but then something happened on 2001, 9/11. Everything that we had planned all of a sudden goes, okay, that ain't going to work. So immediately after the budget was passed, they froze everything at prior levels because we didn't know what was going to happen. If this got out of control and there was some military action, we may have staff that was lost, so we didn't know what was going on, and everybody kind of got paranoid and just kind of froze everything. So no matter how well you prepare, you always have to have a plan B in mind, and that's what I'm trying to get to here. So even though you plan for the best, you prepare for the worst. And that's something that people tend to forget. And that concludes this section.